I just think it's time that we have total disclosure. And you all in the press ought to be for transparency and disclosure. I don't see a problem with that.
Far too long, people have been lied to by their government, and I think the way that you regain trust, that you have to have a fully transparent government.
I am convinced we're making extraordinary progress with UFO disclosure across various sectors. Those recent comments by Representative Tim Burchett and Anna Paulina Luna are only the tip of the iceberg. Just today, I learned that Steven Spielberg's latest film has apparently been retitled Disclosure, formerly titled The Dish, as reported on worldofreal.com. There are no plot details at this time, but the story, written by David Cope, is said to be a two-hander with the UFO storyline. Of course, that pales in comparison to a tweet that former Rear Admiral and former head of NOAA, Tim Gallaudet, dropped on X today. In his tweet, he reveals that he will be working with the Trump administration on the topic of UFO disclosure. Here's his tweet. My thoughts from the @Soul Foundation Symposium on a whole of government approach for the U.S. regarding UAP. I am meeting with Trump administration officials this week to work towards that end. I discovered that Liberation Times covered this development as I was working on this video. Here's an excerpt from his article in which he covered this development, and I quote, yesterday, it was announced that Tim Gallaudet had joined the advisory board of the UAP Disclosure Fund, a political action group focused on UAP transparency. Welcoming the news on his LinkedIn page, Gallaudet called on the Trump administration to take action and acknowledge a UAP cover-up, which may reveal the existence of advanced non-human intelligence interacting with Earth. He wrote, this is from his LinkedIn page, amidst all the churn involving the change in direction for the federal government, there is an even greater issue affecting the nation and society writ large. That is the reality of the U.S. government possessing data and evidence proving the existence of unidentified anomalous phenomena and the higher order non-human intelligence, NHI, controlling them. We are not alone, and it is time for the Trump administration to acknowledge the decades-long cover-up to hide it, end quote. That's pretty heavy. And the question is, are we on the path to controlled disclosure or catastrophic disclosure? Well, before I answer that question, here is Tim Gallaudet addressing that very issue in a recent Soul Foundation symposium from November.
Tim, based on your comments, do you think that we are on a controlled or uncontrolled disclosure path at this point?
That's a great question. What's your name?
Oh, sorry, my name is Daniel Branco.
Daniel?
Yeah, Daniel.
Oh, good, Daniel. Well, that's a great question because it's really hard to tell. Daniel's question is, are we on a path for controlled or uncontrolled disclosure or catastrophic disclosure? And because right now the government's approach is pretty uncontrolled right now, as I mentioned, and a lot's coming out. You have myself and other witnesses and whistleblowers. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know if I want to go on record saying it's catastrophic right now, but there's clearly not an organized path, and that's what we need to achieve. So, thank you, Daniel.
The topic of controlled disclosure versus catastrophic disclosure, I think it might be a bit of a misnomer because any form of disclosure will have a catastrophic nature to it. It really comes down to degrees. Now, what's going to make disclosure the most harsh is if the Department of Defense and agencies like the CIA push back against transparency as long as they can. The blowback of that will be heightened. Yet, if the Department of Defense, the CIA, and other entities that are relevant to this discussion make a concerted effort to facilitate UFO transparency, then the blowback will be minimized and the catastrophic nature of disclosure will be on the lower end of the spectrum. I don't know what's going to happen. It remains to be seen, but let's cover the highly anticipated documentary, The Age of Disclosure. I never really covered it much in an individual video, so this is a great time to cover it. As far as I know, no release date has been given yet. The Age of Disclosure by Dan Farah promises to be the most well-sourced and credible film ever made about the buzzy topic, and its first trailer has been released. The Age of the Disclosure by filmmaker Dan Farah features on-record interviews with 34 current and former senior members of the U.S. government, military and intelligence community with direct knowledge of unidentified aerial phenomena. The film contends there has been an 80-year cover-up of the existence of non-human intelligence life and a secret war among major nations to reverse engineer UFO technology. And this, as I understand it, is going to have a real theatrical release, so it's not going to just be on like Apple TV or Amazon Prime. It's going to be in real theaters as far as I understand. I think one of the great accomplishment this film is going to make, it's going to emphasize a big part of the topic that doesn't really get that much airtime. And that's the secret Cold War sub rosa allegedly going on between major nations to be the first to actually duplicate UAP technology. Positive lift, or in the vernacular, anti-gravitic, instant acceleration, transmedium capabilities, and so forth. Obviously, any nation that cracks this technology is going to have an extraordinary edge, and that's an understatement in terms of dictating what goes on in the world geopolitically. Because who's going to want to go to war with a nation that is thousands of years ahead of other technologies other nations have? It would almost be like the Navy SEALs waging war with an uncontacted tribe. The Navy SEALs would have machine guns and other capabilities, and the uncontacted tribe would have bow and arrows and spears. There is a debate, of course, about how much this technology has been back engineered. I don't have a strong opinion on it. There's arguments in both directions. Hopefully we'll get greater clarity on whatever that truth is as the disclosure process persists. From the official description of Dan Farr's upcoming film, and I quote, "The film was granted unprecedented access and support from senior members of the U.S. government, military, and intelligence community. Everyone interviewed in the film has direct knowledge of UAP as a result of their work for the U.S. government. The film exposes the profound impact the situation has on the future of humanity while providing a look behind the scenes and those at the forefront of the bipartisan disclosure effort." And in the Liberation Times article I shared, I think the last sentence of that article was, in the film, of course referring to The Age of Disclosure, directed by Dan Farah, alongside other advocates and whistleblowers, is understood by Liberation Times to make his most revealing comments on UAP to date. That's Senator Marco Rubio. His most revealing comments on UAP to date will be in The Age of Disclosure. I seem to recall that Lou Elizondo said there will be people in this film that have not come forward before about UAP, that we have not known about in that sense. And even the official description says there's going to be 34, think about that number, 34 current and former senior members of the U.S. government, military and intelligence community with direct knowledge of unidentified aerial phenomena. Of course, James Clapper, former DNI, he was also the head of other agencies during his long, illustrious career, will also be in the film. That itself is a bombshell. So it does look like the Department of Defense and other agencies are going to have to contend with this film, which is not trivial by any stretch of the imagination. It's going to look pretty weird if the Department of Defense and the CIA try to say there's nothing to see here. Yet you have people of the caliber of James Clapper and Marco Rubio and others saying otherwise. How are they going to contend with that? It's not going to be an easy thing to do. And now, as we have reported, you have a former Rear Admiral and head of NOAA, Tim Gallaudet, meeting with the Trump administration and to discuss how we can get UFO transparency. So it does seem pretty reasonable to me to be optimistic that in the coming years we're going to see further progress that might culminate with UFO disclosure. But on the question of whether it's catastrophic or not, it's going to be catastrophic to some degree because this revelation changes our relationship with reality on a collective level. And it changes our relationship with reality not in a one-dimensional way, but basically, I suppose, in most ways, whether it comes to religion or science or history, or even our assumption that we're good judges of what the truth is. Like, even that's going to have to be drawn into question. Think about it. If our greatest institutions and minds have scoffed at the idea that there's been a multi-decade cover-up of this topic and that aliens have been engaging our world or non-human intelligence has been engaging our world, then what does that say about our ability to perceive the truth of our universe, the truth of our country, the truth of our geopolitics, the truth of our world? So many people have conveyed that if something of this caliber was covered up, we would know. It would have become obvious or proven already, but it hasn't. So it's like a profound soul-searching revelation where we learn so much about, let me put it this way, we learn as much about ourselves with disclosure as we do about the universe and the way governments work, and the fact that there has been, if it's true, a multi-decade sub rosa Cold War among nations to be the first to understand this technology. And it's clear to me that the UFO intelligence or non-human intelligence is abducting people. I believe that's true. And I believe that this phenomena has been calculating how much evidence it wants us to gather intentionally. And that for some reason, it has been more charitable in letting aerospace corporations and governments acquire smoking gun evidence of various kinds, and far less charitable in allowing your average Joe or public institution or scientists from gathering, or academics from gathering that same evidence. Why is that? Well, that's going to be one of the bigger questions that we're going to have to grapple with in a post-disclosure world. This higher intelligence does appear to be utilizing manipulation tactics, in my opinion, because if it wasn't utilizing manipulation tactics or counterintelligence tactics, then we would have had disclosure decades ago. And that's just part of the deep mystery that we're all going to have to grapple with as we passage into a post-disclosure world. And yeah, I mean, former Rear Admiral Tim Gallaudet meeting with the Trump administration about UFO disclosure is mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing. And as journalist Christopher Sharp said, if this would have taken place 5 years ago, our minds would have been blown, but we have progressed so much that we've become desensitized to the progress, which is why a lot of people, I think, are so focused on, well, we just need smoking gun evidence and that's all that matters, when of course historians are never going to look at it that way. They're going to look at every single milestone that's been achieved on the march to the big event, which is UFO confirmation. And our world will shift in the most profound way imaginable when UFO confirmation occurs. Everything is going to be drawn into question. Everything. I even think that our assumptions about consciousness will be drawn into question as a result of UFO disclosure. That may not happen immediately, but I think over time, that's a theme that's going to unfold. What is consciousness? Just as we collectively made assumptions about UFOs and got them wrong What assumptions have we made about consciousness and gotten wrong? Now, I know the retort is going to be say, hey, just because we were wrong about UFOs doesn't mean we can assume we were wrong about consciousness. We need scientific evidence to demonstrate we were wrong about consciousness, just as scientific evidence is what led to UFO confirmation to begin with. Yes, I understand that retort, but on the other hand, if you look at UFO history, it's replete with stories of telepathy, and hitchhiker effects of people who have come in contact with UAP. So the literature itself, at the very minimum, draws into question the nature of consciousness. And we'll obviously have to take the literature much more seriously than we ever did before when UFO confirmation or disclosure, whatever terminology you prefer, unfolds. So this is an amazing story that Tim Gallaudet's meeting with the Trump administration this week about UFO disclosure. It's not trivial, it's extraordinary. And even though I was busy working on another video, this was so important I felt like I had to drop that and cover this. So it's very exciting. I look forward to stepping into the new world. And I do call it a new world. I assess that the world before disclosure is a different world than the world after disclosure, because our relationship with reality changes in such a profound way. And I am deeply privileged to be a part of that, and as I believe you are as well. The conversations around the dinner table, the conversations that our journalists are going to have on CNN and Fox News and MSNBC, the conversations that our Congress is going to have and our scientists and historians and theologians and religious leaders are going to have, it's going to be a beautiful moment. It's going to be absolutely breathtaking. Is it going to be scary? No, because life is already so scary. Can you make life more scary than it is? I'm not sure that you can. We have war and famine. There's nuclear ICBMs all over the world that someone could just press a button and end the world. There's meteors out in space that, given enough time, we're probably destined to have an unfortunate interaction with. Hopefully we can destroy the meteor and detect it prior to that. But my point is that I don't think the world will be more scary in a post-disclosure world. I think it will be more magical and whimsical. And look, I think the darkest part of the UFO phenomenon, in my opinion, is the abductions, the alleged abductions. That's the darkest part. It's extremely disturbing, but it's just a part of nature, and postponing disclosure doesn't take away the abduction phenomenon. The non-human intelligences, some of them, I don't know, maybe it's a particular species, I don't know, but they're abducting human beings, in my opinion. And withholding disclosure doesn't stop that from being true. And so in that light, disclosure doesn't make the world a scarier place. Disclosure just broadens our horizons, and it gives us more information, which I think we should have. We should have more information. And I look forward to having this YouTube channel in a post-disclosure world and going on with the path we're on and enjoying that shift and enjoying that new relationship with reality that we will all have. And I think it will make us deeper thinkers. I think it will make us better people. I think it will make us paradoxically better critical thinkers. Scientific knowledge should never have been withheld from us. I mean, if you want to make an argument during the Cold War, it should have, okay, but the Cold War's been over for decades now. We should have been informed about this decades ago. It's long overdue. So I'm really excited for the shift. And we're all going to be part of it. Every single one of us. Whether you have a YouTube channel or not, whether you have social media or not, you're going to be part of the shift. You're going to be engaging in conversations with people about our place in the universe. It's going to be beautiful, and I look forward to it. And in some sense, it's going to have to be catastrophic, because it's going to reveal to us collectively how flawed we are. And a friend of mine on X, I think his Twitter handle is Kick Plenty. He coined a term, second disclosure. And the second disclosure is, so the first disclosure, of course, is that we learn that we're not alone. We learn about UAP and abductions and their engagement with our world. But the second disclosure is equally as important, in my opinion. We learn how flawed we are. I mean, we have Starbucks and Wi-Fi and ChatGPT. We have SpaceX and smartphones, and we have all these things. We're really smart and creative, but yet somehow collectively we ignored UAP. What does that say about humanity? I think what it says is that no matter how smart we think we all have blind spots. I may not have had a blind spot with UAP, but I am very confident I have many blind spots with other things to various degrees, as we all do. The smartest among us have blind spots about various topics. And so there's going to be a renewed humility among our species that I think will be very helpful. And maybe it will make us a little bit less dogmatic. And as you may know, I'm not very comfortable with dogmatism. I'm open to counter arguments as to where I may be wrong, but as it stands now, dogmatism it makes me uncomfortable for a variety of reasons beyond the scope of this video. But we're going to leave it at that. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it, genuinely. Please do not forget to subscribe. If you'd like to support this channel, you can check out my merch shop where I sell t-shirts. You can become a patron. You can become a YouTube member. You can give me a one-time donation. All those potentialities can be accessed in the description box below. Or you can just slap a like on this bad boy, and I'll appreciate it so much. Thanks so much for watching. I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Special thanks to all YouTube members, patrons, those that have bought merch, those that have given me a one-time donation. I couldn't do it without you. Thank you so much. See you in the next episode.